Welcome back. South Africa's labour market continues to be on the back foot. During the third quarter, total employment in the formal non-agricultural sector declined by 1.2%, reflecting a decrease of 133,000 jobs, bringing the level of employment to 10.6 million. And joining me now to discuss the dynamics playing out in the labour market is senior economist at FNB, Koketso Mano. Thank you so much for your time, Koketso. Now, it would seem that this is no surprise considering the contraction in GDP that we saw in the third quarter.
Well, actually, to the contrary, right? Because that contraction in the third quarter was driven by your agricultural sector. So that was really what drove that negative number. But if you look at the other sectors of the economy, mining, manufacturing, retail sales, those contributed positively to GDP. So if you actually take out agriculture from that calculation, you will see that growth was actually 0.4% on a quarter-on-quarter basis and 1.1% on a year-on-year basis. So these numbers actually highlight a little bit of a contradiction, but we'll get into the numbers and we'll explain exactly what's driving this weak employment numbers. But I guess just to flag again, like the economy is still recovering.
Yes.
So in line with that, we are likely to see a staggered improvement in employment.
Okay, I am going to go back to that more holistic picture, including agriculture. But right now, I mean, we talk about the surprise that actually these industries contributed more to GDP and positively to GDP, but they actually did shed jobs. What was the main reason behind this?
Yeah. So when we look at the numbers that were published today, and just to mention to everyone, so we get two sets of labor data from StatSA.
Yes.
One is the QLFS, the Quarterly Labor Force Statistics, and the other is the QES, which is what we got today, the Quarterly Employment Statistics, which just looks at firms, right, and only gives you formal employment. So what we see in the formal economy is that side of the economy has shed jobs in the third quarter of this year.
Yeah.
We're looking at around 130,000 jobs lost relative to the second quarter. And when you look at what was driving that, a lot of those job losses were in the community services sector, right? So that was where the bulk of the job losses were. We lost in that sector 131,000 jobs. So it is a reflection mostly of part-time jobs that were lost in that sector and could be related to, the national election employment gains during the second quarter.
When you say community services, what exactly are we talking about here?
So under community services, you get national government, provincial government, local government, and extra budgetary institutions, right? Yeah, so there are a couple of others, but those are the large ones that we tend to focus on. So that's where we think, the weakness is really coming from, especially when you look at part-time jobs, I have to flag.
Oh, okay. So that was after the election. So really just, yeah, okay, I get that. What about the others now? Because I understand, of course, they don't have, such a big contribution. But what about the others in the formal sector?
Yeah, and maybe just to close off that point quickly is we think that's one of the major reasons, right? But there could be other drivers that are driving a little bit of these numbers. So when we think about the part-time jobs, right? So a lot of those jobs were lost in the community services sector, but we also did see full-time jobs actually being higher in the trade sector. So while you got those losses on a part-time basis, we did get to see, a relatively decent number of jobs being added in full-time on full-time basis in the trade sector. So what we tend to see as you approach the end of the year is that you get the trade sector picking up numbers, especially part-time jobs related to festive season activity. And so maybe you see a little bit of that in the third quarter, but a lot of that in the fourth quarter. But what is encouraging us from these numbers is that these are full-time jobs. So it could be more of an indication that this sector is preparing for improved consumer fundamentals, which is something that we've been speaking about going into 2025. It's just one number, And it's always hard to, make inferences
Yes.
from just one number, but we're hopeful that it's not just a temporary blip, that we continue to see these improvements going forward.
Okay, but taking a look at the holistic picture, right, including agriculture, because agriculture was the biggest negative contributor to the contraction in the third quarter. And then you have kind of this lower number on the formal employment sector. Would you say that on a holistic level, that really also points to still a very, very tough economy for employment?
Yes. So in general, and maybe let's contextualize, right?
Yes,
On a quarter-on-quarter basis, it's still showing you that weakness.
yes.
On a year-on-year basis, it's also showing you
Mm.
that weakness.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the recovery,
Yes.
right, since the COVID-19 pandemic that hit in 2020. So we tend to compare the numbers to the end of 2019 just to get a reference.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see from those numbers is actually that employment, the recovery in informal employment continues to be intact, right?
Okay.
So when you compare to the end of 2019, there's actually been over 380,000 jobs that have been added to this
Yeah.
economy, to the formal economy. So it's still showing us that resilient recovery. It's just the problem is that you will get these quarterly
Mm.
influences. And also because we're coming from this dip in economic growth, you will see the impact when you look at the year-on-year numbers. But
Ah.
let's put together the employment numbers, the GDP numbers, and look. Those are the lagging indicators, right?
Yes.
And look at more of your leading indicators. When you
Mm.
look at your leading indicators, whether it be confidence, whether it be the leading indicator that is formulated by the South African Reserve Bank,
Yeah.
you will see that those leading indicators are showing us that the economy is building up steam.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with the lagging indicators, it just takes time for you to actually see those improvements
All
in the
right.
numbers.
Koketso, your tone is very encouraging, so I'll definitely hold on to that. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights today. That was senior economist at FNB, Koketso Mano.